Hello everyone and welcome back to the Rachelle Anne Miller YouTube channel. Today I am featuring the Sending Sunshine digital stamp from Rachelle Anne Miller, which was released in April. Now for my card here, I started by coloring the gorgeous image. There is also a sentiment included with this digital stamp, but in case you don't need that specific sentiment like I didn't, you can always remove it before you start coloring. And then you still have all of the options left for you later on to add a sentiment yourself. So I am going to color with Copic markers as I always do. I hope that you enjoy this coloring. If you want to revisit color combinations, you can always find them in the description box down below as well as on the blog post. So this really gorgeous image, I started with skin tone. Personally, I love starting, I tend to start with the areas that I find the hardest to color in. Sometimes I also avoid those areas. But in the end, it's better to start with it because if it doesn't work out because you're insecure about it and it isn't working out, you can always completely start over without coloring the complete image and then ruining it according to you at the end. So for this one, I am giving the lovely girl blonde hair. I thought it was going to be really cute, and it had been a while since I used this specific combination to create blonde hair. It's the E55, E53, E51, in case you are wondering. It works really great. If you want to, you can add a darker marker to give it a bit of brown, a hint of brown, but that's all up to you. So once I did that, those really are for me the hardest parts of the coloring when it comes to Rachelle Anne Miller images, but it also really makes a world of difference. So for me, I start with the hardest parts most of the time, and then I work my way towards the elements where I am confident in. So for the flowers, I went for sunflowers, sending sunshine. So I immediately had that idea of creating sunflowers. So in the center, brown, and then yellow. And there are actually so many colors returning on this card. It is just crazy. So one layer for me most of the time doesn't do it. So I tend to go over it 2 times, sometimes 3 times, depending on whether I got that blend that I want or not. I am also using Transotype Perfect Coloring Paper, which is a paper that can handle several layers. Of course, if you are someone that is heavily blending, give the paper some time to rest. You can do that by just putting it aside and let it dry, air dry. That takes a bit of time. Or you can take your heat gun, a hair dryer, anything like that to speed up that process. That's all up to you. Now for the leaves, for all of the flowers, I'm using the same colors. Later on I will create a bit of grass, therefore I will also use the same greens, but I only did that afterwards, so that will be for later on. And I just use some dots, so really simple. And it gives the feeling of grass, but we know that it's just dots that we added. The flowers, all the same yellow, and I started for the shadowing. I actually started in the middle part of all of the leaves here, and I worked my way towards the edges with the lighter markers. Shadowing, it's all up to you what you want to do. I decided for this card that I wanted to have like a centered light source. So the girl is looking towards the right, so I have my lightest colors on the right side. The cow is looking towards the left, I will have my lightest colors on the left side. It's a bit the opposite. For the flowers, I did the centers as the one that was that is on the left that I'm coloring right now. It is there, so I did the shadows on the left, the ones on the right, I did the shadows on the right. But for the leaves here, I really wanted it to draw your attention, and so I ended up adding the lightest colors on the edges. There doesn't really have to be a logic. I also always try to include a logic, but here in case of the flowers, it's really a bit random. But I really love how it ended up. So do your thing, have fun coloring it the way you want to color it. Create rainbow flowers if you want to, give every flower another color. So many possibilities. Truly, just have fun with it. It's a gorgeous image to color in, and it's really a ton of fun. Also, adding the shadows like this took me a while to get the blend that I wanted to have, um, but it's all worth it. You just keep adding and heat set in between if you need to. And then next up, there is the cow that I'm going to color in. I wanted it to be a white cow with brown spots. I think where I live, that's like the most common one. So just to you, of course. I also didn't want it to be completely white, but so I actually used the colors from the hair, from the blonde hair, to give this cow a base layer, some shadowing. I didn't avoid the spots because the spots will be darker, so I just could do my thing here without fiddling with those spots, which was kind of handy as well. So I did that, and then I went over those spots again using that brown combination that I also have on the sunflower center um, to fill it all up. And as I said, the shadowing, well, is on the right side because it is facing towards the left. So we have that centered light source for the cow and the girl, um, and centered as in centered in this scene and not specifically on the critters or images. So I just built everything up. I was a bit hesitant about the nose here, or the mouth, of how you want to call it, but I ended up using one marker less, and just darkening the face a bit more with the E55 as well. For the other colors that I still need to use for the girl, for the birds, I ended up adding teals. Teals works so great. I love it. I actually need to contain myself every time that I have another image from Rachelle Anne Miller, because I always find that yellow and teal will go so well. Um, so I try to avoid it. So my other cards, I hope that I don't repeat myself too often, too quickly. But in this case, I really wanted to use teal with the yellow. It works great. Um, so I did that, and then for the birds, I actually used one marker less again than on the dress, so that I had a different blue, but still that it was matching completely with the rest. So I'm just building up here the darkness. I'm building up my layers so that I have a nicer blend. And then we will do quickly the birds. They are really tiny, so you don't need a lot. 2 markers definitely is enough. But I went over it again to just really have that shadow present as well. And that's actually how quickly the coloring can be. And it really was a ton of fun. So I'm not doing the grounding yet. I will be doing that later on. First, I'm going to create a bit of my elements for my cards. So I used the nesting decals mini slimline die from Hello Bluebird here. I want to have some pen and paper above and below this specific scene, and so I took the nesting decal mini slimline die to really have this gorgeous edge. Now later on I decided it was a bit too big still, so I used a smaller version of the nesting decal, but that's for later. Here I'm adding that grounding. As I said, I'm just using some dots. I'm not an expert at this, but there is tons of inspiration out there. Just add them randomly. I'm trying to create like a horizon, like I have a straight kind of line, and then I'd go a bit everywhere around that line to give it a bit of that whimsical vibe. You add as much as you want to, you add them as thick as you want to, the dots. It's all up to you. The more vertical, again, you hold your marker, and the lighter you touch the paper, the thinner the dots can be. It's the same with the hair. The more vertical, the thinner your lines can be if you don't add too much pressure. Then for a sentiment, I went for a really simple one. I'm using the birthday wishes, the itty bitty birthday wishes from my favorite things. No, the bitty. Well, I will check. Um, I just love these sentiments. It's my go-to. It's the bitty birthday wishes. You have bitty everything from my favorite things, and they give you just the option to create so many different cards with different sentiments for the same purpose. I just love that. So the pattern paper, I didn't know which one I wanted to use, but I have my coloring done, so what I tend to do is just go on top of every pattern paper that is an option and see whether it works. I think with the teal here that it is definitely an option to use this really colorful pattern paper for my favorite things, but I actually ended up using another paper pack from Lien for this card from the Stripes and Sprinkles paper pack. But at this specific moment, I was still going from I'm going to do a really bright, festive pattern paper, and as you can, it can work. So use your favorite pattern paper, just go for it, have fun with it. The only thing to keep in mind here is that once you have your pattern paper decided upon, you can add it to your card base. But this specific strip that I die cut with the mini slimline and that's in decal die from Hello Bluebird is too large to put on top of the card base. So it still has to be chopped to fit perfectly. So again, here many possibilities. I went for the stripes, but the dots would work perfectly as well. I love this color. It's a teal one, but it's also a greenish one. It works so great. So I went for that. I'm going to add it to my card base. You can also use some parts of it so that you are not wasting too much of your pattern paper. From time to time I do that, not today. Don't ask my logic, there isn't any. But I just add it to my card base and then I trim off the excess. Then next up, normally I trim off the edge on the left side of my mini slimline there, and then I can trim off the rest once it's on my card base. But in this case, I just measured it to make sure that I had like the center, that it was just kind of perfectly aligned, and then I just measured what I needed. And I'm going to trim that down as well. Even with this rough edge, you can still make sure that once you add it, it's like completely straight underneath your trimmer. In the end, even with the rough edge, it's perfectly fine. So since I trimmed off the right side, I couldn't use like my other method to first add it to my card base and then trim it off. So I just made sure to indicate where I needed to trim the other side as well. And then I'm going to add some foam tape in the back to just give it a tiny bit of dimension. And once it's removed, I'm going to take my time, align it on my card base, and then this card will be completely finished. Well, not really. I still added some white jelly roll pen details to the dress of the little girl, but afterwards it really is finished. So that's it for today. I hope that this video could inspire you. Maybe you have this digital stamp, maybe it's on your wish list, and this can help you with the creation of your next card. Thank you so much for being here, taking the time to watch this video. I truly hope that it could inspire you and that you had fun watching it. Thank you so much, and I'll be back with another card really soon. Bye!